And alright, it is time for a playthrough that I really didn't think I was going to get around to doing, but here we are. Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and the playthrough I am looking to do today is going to be for the remastered Crash Bandicoot. Now, I will not be playing the entire trilogy, well, at least not at the moment, I might eventually, but for right now, we are only focusing on the remaster of the original game, and that is available through the Insane Trilogy for Crash Bandicoot. Now, this is something I had been sitting on for a very long time, so long in fact that I kind of forgot that I even had it available. Back whenever I was still recording footage for the Batman Arkham Knight playthrough, I was kind of doing this on the side just to give myself a break, and I recorded a bunch of my gameplay for Crash Bandicoot just in case I ever decided I wanted to do something with it. But then I went pretty much immediately from Batman Arkham Knight to the Mortal Kombat franchise, and I've been playing that for a very long time. And then suddenly I remembered, oh yeah, I have a bunch of this gameplay from a long time ago, I may as well go ahead and do something with it, and here we are. But yeah, I will be focusing on the gameplay for Crash Bandicoot. Now, some of this is going to be out of order because I recorded it over multiple playthroughs, and you'll probably notice it as we progress, especially in the overworld, but it should not really impact your viewing experience very much. Like, you may from time to time see that I've already completed a level that I am playing through, but other than that, everything still should go smoothly as we're going to be going level to level to level all the way to the very end of the game. This video is going to be putting all the levels in order from start to finish, how you would probably be seeing yourself playing through the game if this was actually your first time playing through it, just with a few things removed in order to make things a little bit smoother for me. Otherwise, we would have a lot of gameplay to go through, which, well, we do already, but at least now we have less. Anyway, enough talking, let's go ahead and get into it and check out the opening cutscene for the game.
But, Dr. Cortex, we haven't determined the cause of past failures.
Moron! This Bandicoot will be my general, and he will lead my Cortex commandos to world domination. This time, I shall reign triumphant. We are closer than ever before. Quickly, into the vortex.
Dr. Cortex, the vortex is not ready. We have no idea what it could do.
Failure again. Capture him!
Uh-oh.
Prepare the female Bandicoot.
Alright, so we get introduced to the main two villains of the game, our protagonist and his motivation to try and get back and save the other Bandicoots. So yeah, drneocortex is going to be our arch nemesis for this playthrough. And he was using regular animals and trying to turn them into his Cortex commandos for world domination, turning them into these humanoid versions of themselves, which, I mean, is only slightly less evil than real-world animal testing, so sure, why not? And we started off with the very first level in Sanity Beach. We got to see the cutscene where Crash wakes up on the beach, which you will see during your very first time playing this level regardless. And I will be taking my time on this level so I can get the gem. Now, the gems are one of two different collectible items that we are going to be needing in order to basically 100% this game. So yeah, you have the gems, and then you have the relics. Now, in order to get the gems, you have to break every single box or crate on the level. And you're going to be seeing me take my time with that here on the first one. Now, there are two different kinds of gems. I'll get into the difference between those in a moment. But as you can tell, this is my very first time on this level. That won't always be the case on other levels. And that's because there are some levels where you cannot break every single box or crate on the very first playthrough of it. Certain levels require you to come back and play through it a second time after you've met some other conditions. Now, that's not the case here. I can go ahead and get this gem. But in future levels, I won't be quite so fortunate. And in those situations, I'll just go ahead and skip over the gem and save that for towards the very end of the game whenever I go through my backtracking phase to go get the items I could not get the first time around. And whenever I'm on those levels for the very first time, I'll just go ahead and skip straight to getting the relic for that level. Now, to get the relics, you have to have already beaten the level once, and then you play through it again to initiate a time trial, which is basically just playing through the entire level again just like you did the first time, but you are going through it as fast as humanly possible and also trying to smash very specific boxes in order to freeze time, and then also save you a little bit of time. So as we play through the game, those are going to be the levels you see. The ones where I play through them to get the gem, and the ones where I play through to get the relics. Any level that requires you to play through it multiple times in order to get the gem, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the very first time because I don't think anyone wants to see me playing through the same level 3 times. I feel like 2 is already pushing it. I mean, it's my video and I probably don't even want to see myself playing through the same level 3 times. And alright, we just got the very last box for this level, so all I have to do is get to the very end without dying, and we get our gem. Oh, I take that back. There's one box right there I still have to get, but that's the last one. At the very end of the level, there's always that little holographic box that tells you how many boxes you've broken versus how many boxes are actually on that level. And if you got all the boxes, that holographic box goes away and is replaced by the actual gem. You pick it up, and then you exit the stage. But of course I did the one and only thing I said I could not do. I died. So I got backtracked all the way to the very last checkpoint, and now I have to break all those boxes again. Which I guess brings me to another important point, and anyone who's played Crash Bandicoot can vouch for this. You will probably die just an uncountable amount of times, like a bunch. And for the sake of making this video as watchable as I can, I will occasionally show the deaths, because they are kind of funny when they do occur. But I'm definitely not going to be showing all of them because nobody has time for that. I'm not that amazing of a Crash player and I definitely die a lot, so I'll reduce it to just a few between checkboxes. But don't worry, you're not just going to be watching non-stop deaths over and over again. We will be progressing this game at what I feel like is a reasonable pace. And alright, I stuck the landing that time, I picked up the gem, and I exited the stage. Although now, I'm going to be restarting the stage because I beat it once, which means the time trial is now available. And when that's the case and you start the level over again, you start back off at the very beginning of the stage, there'll be a little stopwatch on the side. The moment you touch that stopwatch, the counter begins, and you are racing to the very end of the track. Like I said, there'll be those yellow crates where it reduces the time, well, not reduces, it freezes it for a set number of seconds. That way in the end your time is reduced. But the idea here is you are trying to reach the end of the stage within a certain time frame in order to get a relic. And there are a few different levels of relics, like the blue one is the lowest relic you can get for the time that you achieved. But then you have gold, and then I think you have platinum or silver. It's a whitish looking relic. And I know whenever you play through the Insane Trilogy, the trophy for Crash Bandicoot's relics are that you get the relic for every single stage, but it has to be gold or platinum. Blue is nice and all, but it does not count for that trophy, so for this playthrough, every relic I achieve is either going to be gold or platinum. So I'm going to be trying to get those times as low as humanly possible, because to get gold or platinum, sometimes those times are really difficult to achieve. And here on level number 2, the Jungle Rollers, you'll see that the clock is already available, so you see I'm starting off by trying to get the relic. And the reason for that being that here in Jungle Rollers, this is one of those levels I was talking about earlier where you have to come back to it later on in order to get the gem because you can't possibly get all the boxes on your first playthrough. And the reason for that is you are going to need a colorful gem in order to do that. Which now I guess means it's time to talk about the two different kinds of gems. You saw in the last level that I got kind of a gray or silvery gem, and that is what we're going to be calling the standard or colorless gem. But then there are 6 other colorful gems, like a yellow one, orange, red, blue, green, and purple. And some of the other gems, like the one on this level, cannot be acquired because some of the boxes are not available to you until you get one of those colorful gems. Like in this level, I think it's the green gem. Like you may have seen that green diamondy looking platform back there a moment ago, that's not normally available. At least not until you have that gem. Like I mentioned in the intro though, I'm playing some of these levels out of order, so it's there now, but it wouldn't normally be. So just ignore that. So yeah, for this level, for the time being, I'm only going to be going for the relic, and then we will backtrack to this level towards the end of the game once we have all of the colorful gems, and then we'll get the colorless gem that represents this level. And the reason that we want all of those gems is because they are the key to an additional cutscene at the very end of the game. And it just would not feel right if we left that part out for this playthrough. So yeah, expect to see me going back for those gems, and expect to see the second cutscene for the ending. And alright, we breezed through the second level and got a gold relic, and now we're on level number 3, the Great Gate, and as you can tell, we are yet again doing another time trial in order to try and get this level's relic as well. Which means we're also skipping over this level's gem because just like in the previous level, this one has a gem that is not available to you until you have a very specific colorful gem. Now, I don't remember which color it is for this level, but just know that you need it, and we'll eventually be backtracking to this level as well. I'm essentially saving these backtrack levels until I have every single colorful gem, that way we do not break the order of the levels any more than we need to. So we're basically going to be playing up to the final boss, and then once we're at that phase, we'll take a break, come back to these levels, get their gems, do the boss battle at the very end of the game, and then go into the first cutscene, and then go into the second one. And I will say the Great Gate here is a very not fun relic to get, because it is a very long level with all kinds of things that can kill you a bunch of different ways if you're even off just a little bit with your jumping. Now there are certainly a bunch of levels like that kind of fit that description, but the Great Gate is certainly among one of the worst ones. Or at least it is in my opinion, although it is also definitely not the worst. I'd probably put it towards the bottom of the worst levels though. You know what, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe just towards the middle, but it still feels like one of the worst. It's like this one, the fortress, the slippery slope, the lab, or not the lab, Vortex Power. Now we're only on the third level, so a bunch of these names probably do not mean very much to you right now, but don't worry. They will. Keep note of those. I'll be talking about them plenty when we get there. Instead, at the moment, we are playing through the level Boulders, level 4, which might be one of the most iconic Crash Bandicoot levels by far. Because the entire level has the Indiana Jones related gimmick where you're being chased by a boulder the entire time, or a series of boulders the entire time. And you only get that rear view camera. You don't really get to see what's in front of you except for just a little bit of space at the bottom of the screen, and it is a lot of fun. And as a kid, I remember this level very vividly because it is kind of stressful the first couple of times you do it, but then suddenly it becomes a lot of fun. Although I do think there's at least one other gimmick in this game that's a little bit more fun that comes in 2 different levels down the road. But we will get there soon. Yeah, boulders though, very iconic, very fun. Well, at least it's really fun when you're not just inches away from getting squished by the boulder and then you find yourself accidentally jumping into a bottomless pit of doom. But surely that won't happen again. But even with that untimely death, I still say this level is a bunch of fun. I think it's only the second death I've had this entire run, so let's try to keep that streak going. And on top of that, we could actually get the gem the first time around whenever we play through this level. So yeah. We should be up to 2 gems here momentarily. And almost there, and there it is. We got the gem and we win. On to level number 5. Oh no, wait. I still have to go back and play through the time trial for this level, so we are not going to level 5 just yet. We're going to go ahead and repeat boulders, and we're going to try and beat this in record time. Then we'll have the relic and the gem, and then we're going to go to level 5. Now, I mentioned the previous level, the Great Gate, was kind of an annoying level to try and get the relic for whenever I was trying to do it in real time. Now here we have the luxury of you getting to see the perfect run to get that relic, but it took me a bunch of attempts. One level that does not take a bunch of attempts is this one right here, Boulders. I would say it's probably one of the easiest ones to get a high level relic for, gold or platinum. And the reason for that being is there's really not anywhere to stop. You're pretty much non-stop going the entire level anyway because you're being chased by the boulder. So you can only have so high of an amount of time taken to complete the level anyway, because if you take a bunch of time, well, you're just gonna die. So yeah, after you do the level the very first time, I just recommend going ahead and doing it one more time for that relic, because at that point you're already familiar with the layout of the level and you can probably breeze through it in 1 or 2 attempts. Like in this case, I go ahead and first try victory getting this relic, so things are pretty nice. And there is one other boulder related level that is going to kind of feel the same exact way, in that once you know the level, and of course after you complete the level for the first time, just go ahead and go through it one more time to get the relic, because it's probably not going to take very many attempts once you're familiar with it, because it's already such a fast-paced level that you're pretty much bound to get either gold or platinum for the relic the first time around. Like, I can't really think of a time when I got lower than gold. As long as you keep that up tempo and don't die, you'll probably get it. And, well, speaking of not dying, I completely fail at doing that, and Crash ends up drowning in the river, and yeah, let's try that one more time. As you can see, I'm doing the time trial first for the level Upstream, level 5, which, as we've come to know, that means that this is going to be a level where I cannot get the gem on the very first try. I have to come back to it later after I get a specific colorful gem. And it's kind of funny in retrospect how many of these early levels require that. You think the early levels in a game would be designed for you to be able to reasonably get those boxes, those crates, so you can figure out the gem mechanic and get a better understanding of what you need to do in order to get those and continue doing those throughout the entire level. Like so far, only the first level and the Boulders level have been able to allow the person to destroy all the crates in the very first try and get the gem. Every other level we've done is going to require some backtracking, which, I mean, that's fine and all. But it feels like a lot more of these levels where you'd be backtracking should be maybe a little bit more in the middle, but I mean, look at the game I'm criticizing here. It's Crash Bandicoot, it's iconic, it's classic. My opinion does not matter. Fantastic game. But it's just kind of one of those funny things you notice in hindsight that they kind of front-loaded a bunch of these backtracking levels. After all of our success in the Upstream level, the very next level is going to be our very first boss fight of the game, which came a little bit sooner than I thought it did, but then again, I haven't really played through this in a while. And that being said, because I have not played through this in about a year, actually it's been over a year. Anyway, since it's been a long time, I don't actually remember what the weakness is for this boss fight. As I'm reflecting on this, my head tells me that whenever he stops, you want to be towards his backside. Maybe you can spin and attack him, or maybe you can jump on top of him to cause him damage, something along those lines. We just need to avoid that walloping stick he is wielding. And well, we eventually get flatlined by the Rafiki Concussion Stick Special, and I'll try to subtly cut here so it's not apparent that I died many, many more times before I eventually figured out what the weakness of this boss was, which it turns out is just jumping on their head, which is something I did try to do during the very first fight, but apparently I just was not quite getting the jump right because I did not end up doing any real damage to them, in fact, no damage at all. And as you can tell, now that I kind of figured out the secret to this boss fight, I am flying through it, and yeah, it's going to be pretty easy. And that just about does it for the very first boss fight of this game. Crash Bandicoot is going to organic trampoline his way out of here, and we're going to proceed on to the very next level. Next up, we have the Rolling Stones level, which is yet another one where we cannot get the colorless gem in this level until we eventually get a colorful gem somewhere else, specifically the blue gem. And that continues the trend I noticed where all the early levels, or well, most of the early levels, are ones that we're going to have to backtrack to later on. I did not realize how consistent of a thing that was until I was editing this video, but yeah, it is most of them. Not a problem though, that does mean that after we are done with most of these early game levels, once we hit around the mid stage of the game, all those middle levels should mostly be ones that we can kind of double up on, get the gem and then get the relic back to back, and start really putting a dent in some of our criteria to try 100%ing this game. And I am going to say 100% loosely here, and that's because I'm not trying to get the platinum relic on every single level or anything. I'm not trying to do all this in the hardest possible difficulty or the greatest achievements that you can do. Just enough to the point to where if you were playing through this yourself, you could end up getting all the trophies that are available for this game. I guess maybe minus the death-related trophies, since I am cutting out a good amount of the deaths, which so far I've only shown a few. I've had a lot more than I have been showing, but yeah, not to worry. That's still gonna be plenty more deaths for our friend Crash Bandicoot because, oh awesome, our very first platinum relic. Anyway, because, well, I do screw up quite a bit in this game. So even though I'm not showing every single one or even a large amount of the ones that I have unfortunately experienced throughout this game, there will be plenty of fun little death animations to see later on. And earlier I said that Boulders is one of the most iconic levels in Crash Bandicoot. Now I think I'm moving on to what would be probably the most iconic, or at least the one that I enjoy the most. And that is going to be the Hog Wild level and eventually the Whole Hog level. Two different levels that have the same gimmick. We jump onto a wild boar and we hold on for dear life as we try to navigate through the level at full speed while riding on top of this wild animal. It is a lot of fun, and it is something that would go on to be replicated in Crash Bandicoot 2 down the road, and eventually 3 as well. Only in Crash Bandicoot 2, Crash ends up riding a baby polar bear instead of a wild boar. And then in number 3, his sister Coco ends up riding on the back of a baby tiger. So yeah, they definitely realized that they were onto something with how fun these levels were, because they've pretty much been in every single Crash Bandicoot so far. Actually, I guess there are some more newer games like a Crash Bandicoot 4 of some kind, but I haven't played that yet, so I don't actually know if it makes a return there or not. Hopefully it does, but I am not sure yet. Maybe eventually I'll get around to playing that as well. And alright, what has been surprisingly a rare commodity, I have managed to pull off getting another gem, so we can check that one off the list. Now it's time to return to the beginning of the level, and then start the time trial and try to get a gold or platinum relic, which I would say Hog Wild is probably the easiest one to get a gold or a platinum relic in. And that's just because, well, you're riding on top of an animal going at full speed the entire time, and you cannot slow them down in any way. So basically, as long as you don't die, the pig is going to do everything that it needs to get you to where you need to go in the right amount of time. So yeah, just try to survive and you'll do just fine. Also, just remember that you do need to hit those yellow crates, but other than that, yeah, this one is pretty straightforward and an easy one to get the gem and the relic for. Although I did end up suffering one death on this level, or at least one death. I know I end up showing one death, but yeah, that's probably more. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is this one's not too bad to try and get knocked off the list of things that you need to do as you progress through the game. Although I am kind of curious, while you're riding this pig, is there some sort of a way that you could potentially miss the gem whenever you are running to the portal at the very end? Because after all, you don't jump off of the pig whenever you're riding it. You just have to ride the pig into the portal and then get transported back to the overworld. I have never tried it since I would hate to lose out on the gem, but I've always been kind of curious, could you just jump over it or run all the way to the side and just avoid the gem and then you have to do it all over again? I mean, definitely not worth risking it to find out, but that has crossed my mind before. But enough about Hog Wild, we are now at the fortress level, and man, do I have absolutely terrible memories about this level, specifically when going for the relic and trying to get gold or platinum with that relic. So I mentioned at the Great Gate that that was kind of an annoying level to try getting this gold or platinum relic for, but I corrected myself about midway through that comment because I realized it wasn't the most difficult, but it was annoying. This one, however, this one is definitely up there as one of the most difficult ones to get the relic for, in my opinion. And this is purely based on my own terrible experiences going for that thing. Because I do not exaggerate, it took me hours in order to get the gold or platinum relic and then proceed on to some more levels. But I was just trying this level over and over and over again, and it got so frustrating after a while because there are just so many things that can kill you along the way in this level. And it is not a short level. Like, if everything goes absolutely amazingly, which it will not, it's still going to take you about 2 minutes and 20 seconds in order to get through this entire level and get the gold relic. But that is you flying through this almost perfectly. Realistically, going through this level should take a lot longer. And a lot of you going through this level perfectly is going to be lucky, or at least it was for me. Because you start off on the ground floor, you hop up on a box that bounces you all the way to the next floor, the very first floor, I guess, technically, considering it's the first one you can really side-scroll through. But yeah, you go from that first floor, you have to climb up the spinning platforms and reach the second floor. Then you have a lot more things trying to kill you there as well, and then you reach the very end of that second floor, and there's a bunch more spinning platforms that you have to execute just perfectly and make sure you don't fall down, because if you fall down, it's a wash. You have to start all over again. Because there's pretty much no way you're going to recover in time in order to hit the timeline that you need to in order to get gold or platinum. Oh, and then you have to climb all of that to the third floor, which that's the one I'm on right now, and there are way more things that can kill you. And then at the very end of the third floor, guess what? You have to climb up a bunch more, try not to fall, and then reach the platform. So yeah, you can't fall, you can't be killed, obviously. And at any point, if you just don't hit any of the platforms quite right or any of the boxes just right, you could end up just a few seconds too slow. All the while just trying to survive, and you can't slow down too much because then you're just losing seconds. So you have to try flying through this as quickly as possible and without making any mistakes, and it's just not going to happen. Like, a bunch of times I would get to this point right here, spin these little logs, and then fall, and then have to start all over again, even though I was at basically the very end of the level. This is definitely one of the levels I believe requires the most amount of luck in order to get the relic that you need. Although I do say this is one of the most difficult, definitely up there, but it is not the most difficult. I am thinking about the one that is the most difficult right now, and man, I have to admit it's not even fun just remembering. But we will get to that. For now, I'm just going to enjoy seeing myself speed through this level and just think to myself, yeah, it definitely was not that easy in real time. But it looks really easy right here. Or, well, I guess at least it did, because we are now past that level, and guess what? We're now on a level where I can actually get the gem. So we're not kicking off this level with a time trial. Instead, we're going to be going at the intended pace like you would be whenever you're first going through the level. And we're just going to be trying to get every single box along the way on this River of Doom. Which I don't know what it is exactly about these river levels, but I remember when I was way younger just having an absolutely terrible time with these levels. It's like this and like the Road to Nowhere style levels, which you'll see that eventually. Although as an adult, this is nowhere near as bad as it was back then. Still have moments where I screw up, but not nearly as bad. As an adult though, it's definitely not the Road to Nowhere or this level that causes me nightmares. No, 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 no. Instead, that special place of absolute horrid memory, well, that belongs to the Slippery Slope level. Again, you'll see that later, much later in the game, but that level haunts my dreams now. Like, I would gladly do this level over and over again. Like, go back to it, I'll go ahead and get the gem for it again, I'll do a whole time trial for it again. None of that bothers me. But I have a horrid fear of ever having to do the Slippery Slope stuff again. I never want to get the gem for that level again, and I definitely never want to get the relic again for that level. I'll be holding on to that footage until like the day I die, just in case I ever need it again, because I am not playing through that crap again. Oh, and I have not really mentioned it throughout this level yet, but those little jumping fish are probably my favorite parts of this level. It's kind of random, but the fact they jump up and they're all nibbly with human-style teeth instead of, fish teeth. I don't know what it is exactly, but that makes me smile every single time I play through this level. Oh, this part's actually kind of important. So that little box, that middle box I just jumped on with the exclamation point. Yeah, that is your cue whenever you hit that to start backtracking through this level, which can be a little bit difficult since you have limited visibility, but you need that middle box in order to access that TNT and that wooden crate that we just saw. And thanks to me just dying, we're not going to walk past that waterfall again, and you'll see that those boxes are no longer there. They do not exist until you hit that metal box, and then they appear. So yeah, that's how that works. On multiple occasions, I pressed on through this level thinking that initiated something further ahead. It does not. And if you don't backtrack, you can't access a few crates that you're going to need in order to get the gem for this level. But if you don't know that, it's very easy to screw up and just press on with the level instead of backtracking a little bit. So definitely want to go out of my way to say that right here and now in case anyone watching this isn't aware of that, get your attention so that if you're ever trying to 100% this game, you know, hey, it's time to start going backwards. Instead of being confused like I was and then having to play this whole level again. I think that's the first time that this game has thrown us a curveball like that, so definitely wanted to point it out. And as we proceed forward through these levels, if we encounter anything like that again, I'll be sure to point it out. Because there are just a lot of little details about this game where you may not realize you need to do something and it causes you have to play through a level a bunch of times. Now, what a person considers difficult or not obvious is definitely going to vary on a per-person basis, but if I found it difficult or not clear whenever I was playing through the game, I'll make sure I say something. And I think this is the very first bonus level that we have done so far in Crash Bandicoot, which this is one of the earliest ones and it's pretty easy. As the game progresses, these get a lot more elaborate, where in order to get every single crate in the bonus level, you have to start doing things in some crazy specific sequences, and it's kind of hard to explain right now, but don't worry. You'll see exactly what I am talking about as we continue through this playthrough. Actually, I guess that's kind of a good example right there, because I just died, and now we're going to have to start the whole bonus level over again. So yeah, you have to start jumping on crates in really specific orders, or you're going to find yourself in a situation where the gap between where you need to jump or where you need to bounce to is possibly too great of a distance for you to actually pull off, and then you're going to die. Now this one is pretty much a straight line of boxes the entire time, so it's not really that complicated. Later on, however, they're going to be more staggered, or there's going to be a limited number of bouncing boxes that you need, and it's going to cause you to have to think about the order that you need to break the boxes in so that you're not stranded so far away that you're inevitably going to die. So yeah, this one's kind of a simple little puzzle since it's all just in one line, but eventually they get way more complicated. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that if you die in a bonus level, it does not actually count as a death. You're not going to be losing a life, and if you're ever on a level where you're trying to get one of the colorful gems, it does not count as a death there either. And that's important because if you are on a level where you're trying to get a colorful gem, you not only have to get every single box on that level, you have to do it without dying. So it's important to distinguish that the deaths do not count in the bonus level, especially for a stage where you're trying to get one of those gems. Now, getting one of the colorless gems is much easier because, I mean, you can die as many times as you want to. If you get all the boxes, that's all that really matters. But that is the distinction between the difficulty of trying to get a colorless gem and one that is colorful. But we went ahead and already got the gem for this level. Now it's time to get the relic, and we are trying to speed run our way through here, which compared to the one that we just did for the fortress a moment ago, this speed run is so much easier. This time trial is nowhere near as complicated or as difficult in comparison. Which, thank goodness, even though I'm just watching this back at this point, I still kind of needed a break from remembering how bad that last one was. Now, I'm not sure which one of the river levels it was, but one of these I actually did not have the footage for whenever I was getting all this together for this video. So after not playing the game for like over a year, I had to go back in and start trying to get the relic for this level, which I thought was going to be more difficult than it ended up being. Like, I thought to myself, well, it's been such a long time, I'm going to be rusty and probably really bad at this, but I think I ended up getting the relic for whichever river level it was in the very first try, so I guess I was just worrying for nothing. And I guess it also emphasizes just how much easier this one was compared to the fortress level, just not even comparable. And I guess it should be kind of obvious as I'm playing through this, but the bonus parts of this level are going to be disabled whenever you're doing one of these time trials. And that's going to be pretty much the case for every single other level as well. So yeah, whenever you do the time trials, other aspects of levels do get locked down. Oh, and if you wander too far into the level, and you try backtracking to the stopwatch in order to start the time trial, sometimes that stopwatch is gone. Because if you go too far, you can't do the time trial. However, you still can wander forward a little bit, and sometimes that is to your advantage if you see an obstacle ahead of you that you just don't want to deal with, like an enemy or a TNT box. Just gee whiz. And now we are on to the second boss of this game, Ripperroo. And Ripperroo is a TNT obsessive kind of opponent, and you have to use the explosives against him in order to win. But also be careful because you can easily just blow yourself up. And looking forward into this game, besides Neocortex himself, I think Ripperroo might be the only boss that returns for a future game from this game. I could be 100% wrong about that, but as I'm thinking about it, I don't really see any others on this list that return later on. Like, Dr. Brio ends up turning up in Crash Bandicoot 2, but not as a boss. So as far as bosses that remain bosses, it might just be Ripperroo and Neocortex. In fact, Ripperroo is in the very next game, Crash Bandicoot 2. And he maintains a similar gimmick of using explosives against you, and I believe you have to kind of use them against him as well. So at least our crazy little kangaroo friend in the restraint jacket maintains a consistency throughout both games. And I don't know if he's in any other ones besides those two games, but I'm willing to bet that his gimmick probably remains the same if he does appear in any others. And speaking of gimmicks and consistency, the key to defeating Ripperroo is to recognize his pattern on this level wherever he's jumping, and then go to one of those big TNT boxes and jump on it, let it drift downstream, and land exactly where he's going to be jumping to, and allowing it to explode right next to him. Now, I have the first two patterns down. I know exactly where he's going and which TNT boxes to target. For some reason, my timing is just really off on the third pattern. I know I want to shoot for the TNT box in the top right corner, but for some reason, I'm just not jumping on it at the right time. And as you saw, it did end up causing a death for me. In all honesty, as I am the one editing this, I know it's caused way more than just that death. And I've cut out a lot of them. Which is kind of surprising. I didn't remember myself really struggling that much with this boss fight, but you know what? I ended up having a decent amount of trouble with it after all, so that was kind of a funny surprise for me watching this back. But I did end up figuring out the pattern. I went ahead and defeated Ripperroo, and I sent him floating downstream, and now it is time to press on to the next level. Actually, now that I've thought about this for just a second longer, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap everything up right here. After all, defeating Ripperroo seems like a really good stopping point. To kick off this playthrough, we've gone through levels 1 through 11. And in the very next episode, we'll be picking things up on level 12. That's going to be the Lost City. And once we are there, we will continue Crash's journey to get back at Cortex and also save the other Bandicoot. But yeah, that's going to be it today for Thor's Entertainment. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you next time.